No idea what this is. I'm going to come back, all right? We're going to start over. Try again. Reload. I have no idea what that was. Oh my gosh. Hang on a second here. A chat. Let's try this. Hello, everybody. We're back. Hang on a second here. Oh my gosh. Welcome back. Okay. Now, this is the weirdest thing. Good morning. Hello, how are you? I'm going to have a sip of coffee. Oh my God. Okay. So today, the topic of our video is how do you navigate? How do you shift between your gears? What do you have in place that prepares you? Good morning and welcome back. What do you have in place that prepares you for moments that like just happened at exactly 10 o'clock when I tried to go live and it said error, must restart. And all I did was happy Thanksgiving, Freddie. Happy Thanksgiving, Charles. All I did was hit refresh and it came back. The thing is, it looked perfectly fine 1 minute earlier, and then all of a sudden it wasn't. And how the timing, thank you, universe, the timing of that cracks me up because it is so, it's like the time I did a video that said, is this thing working? And it didn't. I have to figure out how to reframe my questions. So a couple of things happened in the last 2 days, and they were profoundly blink worthy. I think that's the right expression. The and I want to talk about the one that happened yesterday first because it's a lead in. So here it is in Canada. We're waving to you in the States because, of course, it's your Thanksgiving. And as I'm sure many of you know, the border crossings between Canada and the US have been the friendliest and the most open and the most giving and forgiving in probably, uh, considering all the wars that have taken place in a very, very long time. And the only thing that has served to change that was 9/11. After 9/11, as I was told in person, face to face, by a US Customs person, um, the border has been on Amber Alert ever since. And when you realize how many years that is now, and you think about what that is like going to work every day, knowing that you're going into a scenario in which everything is standard operating procedure is Amber Alert on the off chance that something terrible will happen. And whether there are issues, whether there are wars, whether there are events surrounding us that look iffy or not, the border has to remain alert because it is protecting all of us. That is the deal. And as the New York governor yesterday said on the first update that I saw on the event that I will talk about, that her hat on behalf of all of Americans is off to the people who show up every day to defend the border against whatever may come. And she said, when everyone else is told to duck, tuck, and roll, they are told to lean in. They walk to danger. They don't run from. And it is profound. And Freddie has said, yes, you heard about the Rainbow Bridge in Niagara Falls. Isn't that crazy, Charles? And yes, Freddie, computers. Love-hate relationship, gratitude, and a little bit of concern. Yes, of course they do. Of course they do, Charles. A ton of questions because it's their job. It has always been their job. And ever since 9/11, it is their job. So now, yesterday, the story is that a couple, we don't know, I don't know yet, their ages, but they were apparently from the area near the Rainbow Bridge that joins Canada and the US at Buffalo. And they had been planning to go to a Kiss concert, and plans were changed when the Kiss concert was postponed because one of the musicians has the flu. They decided instead to go to the casino, and apparently they were either on their way there or back. The details aren't clear. However, the video footage shows them driving at a terrifying rate of speed. They were driving in a pale colored Bentley, and the speed they were going at, the governor of New York said it looked like it was a computer generated video. She had never seen anything go that fast, any car go that fast. And then it hit something, and a curb or one of those concrete abutments, and it launched into the air. And when you consider that it was going over 100 miles an hour on the ground with friction, it could immediately go a lot faster when it was catapulted into the air. And it shot into the air, and as its trajectory came down, it hit one of the enclosures that the cars drive through for inspection, and it burst into a ball of flames. So immediately, there's been an explosion on the Rainbow Bridge, was the news. I watched the Prime Minister announce it on the news in Ottawa, where I live, and explaining it to Parliament, and that he was going to have to regretfully step away to deal with what it might be, because when he made the announcement, no one had any idea what it was or why. It happened around 11:30 yesterday morning. Now, the challenge is that for Americans and Canadians, yesterday was the busiest crossing day of the year for Thanksgiving. And so it is the worst time. Also, if you had a nefarious purpose, the best time to do something at a major border crossing. So that border crossing was closed. Amtrak was suspended. The airport remained open, although there was an alert. And the other bridges were also on high alert. So here's the thing. That turns out to simply have been reckless driving. That turns out simply to have been somebody not paying attention. If you can squint and see in the corner of the video, I've watched it many times, it looks as though this Bentley swerved to avoid a car. It's on a road that could be the approach to the crossing. It could also just be a street, and there was another car coming, and it looks like that car swerved. It's way in the top corner of the video. It's very hard to see. Presumably they'll expand it so we can get a better look later. The point is this couple driving a Bentley, so, they weren't homeless, were going to go to an expensive concert. Their plans changed. They went someplace else. They had disposable money to have a good time. They were on their way or had been someplace else, and now they were going to another destination, and they were driving far too quickly, far too fast, on any circumstance except possibly an open highway, far too recklessly. And the worst possible thing happened. Not only did they lose their lives in a heartbeat, but they could have killed so many other people, and they affected the lives of hundreds of thousands of people, and put two countries that have long been good, solid, collaborating relationship partners on high alert at a time when there are wars taking place all over the world. And no one is sure at the border if we are safe. That did not need to happen. However, it did. Now, my conversation today is not about that. My conversation is about us. But that was the news item that made me say, oh, this is a whole new wrinkle. Because I had been planning to talk today about the thing that happened on Tuesday afternoon after my Tuesday video. And I want to go back to that now that you know what the context is for this video this morning. And by the way, let me just pause for a second. I want to go to a lighter note, to a more human note. And I want to say to everyone who has the opportunity today, this is one of those days to give thanks for all the good and also for all the lessons. Because the lessons, if we pay attention, can make more good gooder, if you know what I mean. So congratulations to all of you who have taken the time, who have chosen to invest in happiness and togetherness and caring and compassion. Congratulations. Good for you. My hat is off to you. And for those of you who felt that you were too busy, now is a time to pause and realize that there is never a time when we are too busy to take a moment and be grateful and thankful for all that we have. Because that video and that disaster yesterday shows you just how quickly it can disappear, right? It's astonishing. And as the governor of New York said, it was so fast and so surreal. It was difficult to believe it wasn't a computer-generated video. It was just so crazy. Good morning, Abby. This is Eddie. Back and forth here. We're making our 28th annual autumnal saffron to the cooking and housekeeping gods. Tradition. Congratulations, Eddie. I'm so glad you are focusing on what matters in your home. Happy Thanksgiving. So the thing I want to tell you about that happened on Tuesday afternoon, let me pause. Let me just pause. I went to pick up a couple of things at the grocery store because we were expecting, we were expecting some icky weather. And so I just scooted over, went in, picked up my things, came out. And I was walking over to my car when I saw someone making their way with a walker from the exit of the grocery store in the opposite direction to where I was going. It was an older fellow, tall, attractive, well-dressed, pushing a walker. And he was taller than the walker. He needed to have the arms elevated on the walker. And so he was bent over. And he was walking in a way that caused me to stop and watch him. I was concerned because he was not moving quickly. I was concerned that he was older, and I was concerned that he was needing to lean on and use a device to support himself. And I wanted to make sure that he was okay. And I noticed there's a security guy at the entrance to the grocery store. And I noticed out of the corner of my eye that he had also come out and he was watching. So I knew that this was going to be okay, that in one way or another, I would go, or clearly the security fellow who has first aid training, he would go if there was a problem. Because this grocery store is in an area where there are quite a few older people living. And so I was watching this man, and I realized that he was stable, he was walking, he was all right, but his focus was so intent. And he was walking carefully. He wasn't halting, he wasn't shaking, he was moving at a steady, slow pace. What caught me was that it was relentless. It was like watching a machine moving seamlessly, slowly, relentlessly, inevitably. It was hypnotic to watch this happen. And he didn't look up, he didn't look from side to side. His focus was complete, absolute, complete, riveted on the task. And it hit me so firmly that I was watching someone with the same intensity and focus and single purpose as mine had been in those months driving back and forth to hospitals. I I recognized in him the same energy. I recognized in him the same single awareness. I A bomb could have gone off, and I have a feeling that he would have kept moving. I know that as I looked back in the months after we lost Dave, I have felt echoes of those days, and I've talked to my friends who I was in touch with at the time, and my two girlfriends, Carol and Kate. Kate's on the West Coast now, and Carol, of course, is in Ottawa. And they have both said that they had never seen me in that gear before. They had never heard me in that space, in that way of coping, of navigating, of manipulating and finessing and continuing to move forward. Now I know consciously that when I would get to each hospital and park the car and walk from the parking area to the hospital, I would pause. I did it consciously. I was aware that I was doing it. I would pause and I would shift gears out of whatever that was into more erect, smiling, positive energy, because I was going to go into a facility where everybody was overwhelmed. And I wanted to be in a place emotionally and energetically that they would gravitate to, that they wouldn't look at me and see another burden. They would look at me and see something positive to be drawn toward, so that my interactions with them on Dave's behalf and teaching me what to do and how to be the best person I needed to be to help everyone. I knew I had to shift out of whatever that was into whatever this needed to be. I knew it without even thinking about it, because this is what show business and this is what being a military brat teaches you. And and I know that there was a different Abby who walked into that hospital from the Abby who had gotten into the car at the house and made the drive and navigated the traffic and the weird roads and the weather and navigated getting into the parking lot and navigated walking from the parking lot to the hospital. I know that Abby and the one in the hospital were two different people. And so I saw in this man that narrow laser focus in action for the first time from the outside. I know what it looks like and feels like from the inside. I know exactly what it is. I don't think I had ever been tasked with living in that space for as long in my memory maybe I've deleted it. I know that those days and days and weeks and months will be something that I retain. And I know that in that kind of single focus that it requires, that it probably identifies me with people who have had to endure getting through to the other side in other similar terrifying scenarios, because really that's what it was. It was terrifying. And and when I could step away from it, the need, the necessity, the importance of going to the next space was a break, was certainly a breather from that, but it wasn't a holiday. It wasn't to kick back and put our feet up and peel a grape. It was not that. It was another complete kind of focus. And while they say a change is as good as a rest, it is, in that you go to a different place in your brain and a different place in your breathing and a different place in your intention. But it's not a reprieve. It's a break from. It's a different place to be. And when I saw this man yesterday, I thought, this is the first time in my entire life I've had an opportunity to see what it looks like from the outside to be where I was. I was watching me in someone else, but I was watching me. And it was riveting, not only because of his intensity, but because I knew that I was seeing a version of what I must have looked like to people, what I must have sounded like to people during those times. You know, when Carol or Kate would say, "Are you okay? Can you catch a break?" "Not now, not yet. I'll let you know. I'm going to go and try and get some sleep." And Carol would say, phone me so that you can, debrief, so you can shift out of whatever that was, so you can get some decent sleep. And bless her heart, long past her bedtime, normally I would do that to get through. And this is why, when I was watching that man, the first thing I did when I saw him and I saw what he was doing, I looked around to see the security guard, and I saw that he was watching as well. So I knew, okay, both of us are here, and I'm going to watch and see if I'm needed, and I'm going to check to see if the security guard is on it, and he was. So I did not feel it was wrong for me to leave. I have to tell you, though, that the whole way home, it was tough. It was. I kept wondering if I should turn around and go back and see if there's something I can do, and I didn't. Not because I didn't want to be there, not because I didn't want to be part of a solution, but I kept thinking as I drove, I wouldn't have appreciated somebody interrupting me. When I was on a mission, I was on a mission. I had to get to the other side. I had to get to the other side. And I could, and I had before, and I would do it again. And that's what I saw in that man. It wasn't that he was frail. It's that he was focused. Was he hindered in some way? Yes. Did he need that walker? Yes. And as Jean has said, it could very well be that he was looking for cracks in the sidewalk. You could be right, hon. I hadn't even thought of that. What I felt in all of him was this laser kind of energy coming off him. And so when I saw that happen, it was the second time that I had been given an opportunity to see something for the first time from the outside. The other one, not remotely as serious. When I took my car in to have winter tires put on, it's a new car, and so it's new tires, and it's the first time I have handed the keys to my car to somebody. And for the first time since I bought it, I got to see somebody else get in my car and drive it, and I got to see my car coming by. And it was my first time being on the outside, looking at my decision come by me, and standing there and feeling so much gratitude and so much pride and so much joy in that's wow. And I can't hear you because of it. Okay. All right. Come back, Jean. Come back. Um, I have to focus for Kat and I when we're walking together. I don't want her to fall. Yes, exactly. Exactly. I know. I watched you. I watched you when you guys were up here. And it is a full-time job, Charles, and you do an amazing job. So those two opportunities, the one on Tuesday, Shoes Day, was, yes, determination certainly is, Freddie, and you would know all about that, wouldn't you? Determination is a powerful force in life. Yes, I'm going to get there, God damn it, and nobody's going to stop me. Absolutely. So the first note in the theme for today was seeing that gentleman on Tuesday afternoon. The second note was yesterday. And I as you know, you'd have to be on a different planet not to know that I'm gathering the scattered threads of my Pivotry and Motion research back together after my long break, excuse me, to put all the pieces together and launch this amazing project that is just going to be so incredible for everyone who gets a chance to be part of it, who chooses to make their opportunity to be part of it. Let's say that more accurately. That I've been looking for the right language and I've been looking for the right images so that recognize and respond appropriately to a change in priorities. There you go, Alex. Absolutely. Recognize and respond. Yes. Recognize, um, uh, uh, assess, apply, accept, acknowledge. All that stuff is such a moment by moment set of skills, isn't it? And it leads right into what I'm doing, you mind reader. So what I came up with was this. Oh no, I have to pause. There was another thing that happened to me yesterday morning. I had an opportunity to talk to someone I've just met recently who was very concerned about one of their children who is not behaving well. And it really struck home when I saw the video of the accident yesterday, because this child who is not behaving well, and not a child, a young adult, has been getting multiple infractions for speeding for no particular reason except not thinking it's a big deal, and parking violations, and not showing up for jobs, and not contributing, and just basically floating through life. And I said something just out of the top of my head. The guy in the back who hands me out stuff to say handed me out something so profoundly relevant. I was thunderstruck by it. The person I'm talking to and I at the same time both went, wow. And I said, the first thing I say all the time to people who are struggling with slackers in their lives, or slacker moments they themselves have dipped into, and that is that life is not a spectator sport. It was never meant to be a spectator sport. And I said this to this individual who said, yeah, I wish I could get that message through. And then here was the second one that was the bombshell. And I said, well, that message may not get through, but this one should. Everyone knows that even spectators got to buy a ticket. And this person stared at me and I stared back. And this is in the middle of, the news that the Kiss concert was canceled because one of the musicians has the flu, and the overwhelming social media chatter about the phenomenon that is the Taylor Swift concert tour that is breaking all pre-existing records, and what people are willing to do and the lengths they'll go through in order to get a ticket and attend. And they are the most active, interactive spectators I've ever seen. As someone was saying, when you get a ticket, it's understood you won't be sitting down. It's an up on your feet, jumping and singing and waving your arms for the 3 full hours that that young lady is out there on that stage and leaving nothing behind. when she goes, she gives it all, and then she manages to find her way off the stage and presumably then says, I think I need to sit down for a minute. Not only is life not a spectator sport, but spectators have to qualify. Even if you just want to spectate, you got to pay to get in. And that is a thing that we have not really ever thought about. We pay the price one way or another. So that was the third thing. That was the cherry on the icing on the cake of these 2 events that happened on Tuesday and then yesterday, Wednesday. So this is what I came up with today. I think we operate in 3 primary gears. I'm not talking about reverse, and I'm not talking about park, okay? I'm talking about the forward motion gears. And I think the 3 gears are these. The 3 gears are focus, as that man I watched yesterday, which is single focus intent, get to where I'm going, nothing's going to stop me. The second gear is flicker, and that's like the fireflies that are in and out. Those are the multitaskers who think they're here, but they're not, who think they're hearing, but they're not, who think they're paying attention, but they're not, who are delivering substandard and don't know it because they're here and they're not. They're here and they're not. And the last one is float. And the floaters are the ones who have no rudder, no engine, no direction known, no purpose. They're just here for the ride. And I think those are the primary gears. And I think the names that have suggested themselves to me, right? Focus, flicker, and float. And I think we all shift in and out of those from time to time, depending on what we think is required of us, what kind of mood we're in. When one dances, one must pay the piper. Yes, pipers don't work for free. Although many of my musician friends will argue that point. And I think that the question that we're asking ourselves, that I am asking today, is not about which gear are you in, although I am going to ask that and talk about that in more detail in a minute. What I want to talk about is our readiness to abort when the choice we made isn't cutting it. Because we have these wake-up calls. And these wake-up calls that I'm talking about are the walls we hit when our pivotary moments, when our pivotary skills come into play without us even realizing it. The ability that we have that we're not even aware of, what I'm on a mission to do is explain it, to illustrate it, to show all of us how we do that thing we do when we're just allowing it to happen by itself. Because the minute we understand it, the minute we are able to see the steps that we go through, the minute we understand why the triggers cause us to do what we do, and most importantly, the minute we know where it is we go to get what it is we need, that is the moment when our confidence will return, when our understanding that we got this will come back to us, and we will be less frightened, less traumatized, less fearful, less frozen, and more willing to say, okay, okay, now what? Now what? Let's do this. And I think we can together, through this leaping curve, which is what I call the learning curve, when the learning curve itself is a hairpin turn, when we navigate the leaping curve and realize that we have come out the other side and we go, whew, all right then. I think that understanding that when we are in focus, we are in focus. When we're in flicker, we're in and out, we're in and out, we're in and out. And when we're in float, we're phoning it in. We need to see that. And I mean, I saw it yesterday. I saw the fellow on Tuesday. I saw focus. I saw focus. I saw my kind of focus. I saw it over there. I was first of all like 10 steps away from it, and I felt the energy coming from him, and it felt so familiar that that's what caused me to pause and really watch really look at what I was seeing. And then I put the pieces together, and then I checked around me. I checked, as I said, for the security guy. I checked to see if there was something I needed to do. And then I allowed myself to just focus on the person focusing, to see what it was, to take away from this lesson what I was being taught. Because, oh my gosh, it was amazing to see me, but over there, because that's what I was watching. And when I saw that video first thing this morning of that car in the split seconds before everything ended for the people inside it, when I saw the outcome of floating in real time, and you know that once you hit a specific moment, you can't undo it. You have to ride it out and be ready when you land. Unfortunately for that couple, there was nothing they could do. Nothing. They did not even have time to get out of the car. They would not have been able to unbuckle their seatbelts in time. If they had been wearing seatbelts, they wouldn't have been able to reach for the handle on the doors in time. It was that fast. It was that total. What you can see in the video when you look it up is a car coming this way and a car going this way, and a blur from just off just the edge of the screen. And you see it come through impossibly fast. You lose sight. You have to go back and watch several times to realize that the car coming this way was not on a collision course. The car coming that way probably was, and it looked like something happened. It looked like a swerve. Probably it was the Bentley, because the next thing that happened was that it suddenly launched. So it had to have hit something to do that, because it went move, and it was up, and then it was suddenly gone. There was no volume on it, so you didn't hear anything. Presumably they can retrieve that. I don't know if they get volume on those surveillance cameras, but I am sure that from another angle that they will eventually retrieve, we will see that obviously the fuel ignited from the impact of whatever that was. And it was just a split second. So my question today is not, do you focus, flicker, or float? Although those are questions I'm certainly going to talk about more in greater detail, because I think those terms, does it matter? Let it happen. Wow. So Alex has two favorite 3-word phrases: does it matter and let it happen. Can change a person's focus. Alex, that's brilliant. That is really brilliant. Thank you. I love those. I'm going to have to chew on them for a while. So back to focus, flicker, and float. I think it's going to be a great exercise, and I'm certainly going to incorporate it, obviously, in the whole pivot tree and motion discussion. And I'm going to do a workbook on how we analyze where we are and when we opt in and out of those three gears that we spend our time in. Today, though, the question is, are we ready? Do we have the ability? So do we have the readiness? Do we have the ability? Do we have the willingness to react in the moment in order to deal with the unexpected? You know, thinking of this person that I just met recently and their 20-something child who is racking up speeding tickets and having cars taken away because of reckless driving. What are the odds that that young person has no idea how to correct what they're doing if there is a high-speed incident that could cost a life? What do we want to bet that that young person has no preparation, no plan whatsoever, and that they're floating? What do we want to bet that that young person, it hasn't occurred to them that even spectators got to buy a ticket, got to pay the piper, got to own the moment, even if all they are is a passenger? In this case, this young person is making decisions without care or concern. So are they flicker moments? Maybe. They flick in, they flick out, and then they float. Do they focus? It sounds like they only focus for a minute when they have to call home and say, so I need a ride. It doesn't sound like it has occurred to them that nothing is a free ride, that we all pay something somehow. And how much do I hope for this person I met and that young person and anybody in their trajectories that this ends better than it could. It's a train wreck on its way. You can see it. So the question today is not focus, flicker, or float, although those are amazing words and they mean so much, and I can just see the conversations we're going to have in the future, can't you? The question is, how good are you at shifting? Because I have to tell you, you know, I was raised in a time when people learned to drive with a manual transmission. And that means that you don't just have a brake and the gas, brake and fuel, or brake if it's an electric car. You also had a clutch because you manually, or manually, that's hand, so footually, footually, you had to footually push in the clutch to disengage the gears so that you could switch into another gear and then let go of the clutch so you were in the other gear and you could move faster or slower as need be, or turn around and go the other way. Footually. I have to write this down. People are going to be rolling their eyes. So how well do we shift? How willing are we to relinquish our white knuckle grip on the gear we're in? How, even if it's not white knuckle, what if it's just pure stubbornness? People like us always do it this way. Okay, but it's not working. How willing are we to say, okay, apparently it's not working. I have to be willing to try something else. How quickly can we respond? And how ready are we coming out the other side? How, you know, when I get in the car just to run an errand, I never used to think I needed to bring anything extra with me. Now I do. Now I bring something that contains a few basic essentials I will need if all of a sudden I find myself having to spend the rest of the day and overnight at a hospital. I have never in my life even remotely thought of needing to do that, let alone doing it. I do it now. Why? History has taught me it might not be a bad idea. And so I am prepared. Do I have everything I need? No. Should I have the other bag? Yes. Do I keep saying, you know what, I'll get it next time? I do. Is that stupid me? It is. Am I going to fix that? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That'll be one of the things I do today. So asking the right questions is an undervalued asset in life. And you know what, Freddie? You're absolutely right. Here's the other thing that is the challenge, and this is all part of the Pivot Tree Project. Knowing that we're not sure which question is the right one, and rather than saying, I give up, having the confidence, finding the confidence to ask, does anyone know the right question? Because so many people are afraid of looking stupid. When people say, aren't you embarrassed? And I say, no, I used to be. I used to be mortified when I was a teenager. And I used to be, humiliated when I was a young adult. But then I did You Can't Do That on Television, and I'm good now. Very few things can embarrass me more than that. And in case I'd forgotten, all I have to do is look it up on the internet. So it's a healing process. So how do we ready ourselves? Do we have to have the lesson come home that hard? Do we have to see two people lose their lives for no purpose whatsoever other than being a lesson to the rest of us? I posted yesterday morning a photograph that was circulated all the time when we lost John Kennedy, because that death and the ripple effects of that moment in time have never completely subsided. Lots of conspiracy stuff, of course, which is part of the ripple effect, but the dramatic change in the course of history and the decisions made by whoever that led up to that horrific moment when an American president was assassinated. There have been other attempts that were thwarted or just self-destructed. There has only been one other success, if you want to call it that, in America's long, proud history. And why I posted it was to talk about Pivot Tree in Motion and say, violence doesn't work. No matter what the motive, it doesn't work. It simply doesn't work. Because if it did, then that event on that day would have accomplished what it was set out to do. And really nothing changed, except for heartbreak, except for anxiety, except for terror. Nothing really changed. Nothing worth the life of someone. And all these other things that are happening, all these wars over time, we all know why there are wars. We all know that this is the product of territorial imperative, that survival of the fittest means that someone's going to lose. We all know that's what this has evolved to be. We get that. We get that it's violent. We get that it's deadly, because survival of the fittest means that someone has to lose. We understand it. What we don't understand is the frivolous use of it, the frivolous, unnecessary use of inconsiderate, selfish, stupid, dangerous behavior that achieves nothing but personal gratification. The copycat behaviors that cost lives and accomplish nothing. Whatever weapons there are, however they're used, whoever decides that it's okay to have them, whatever they are, whatever the rules, whatever the ruling, the people in power choose, everyone is saying, well, because this and well, because that. The point is, violence doesn't achieve what the people say it will. All it does is cost lives, period. And nothing really changes except survival of the fittest. And it is a slow, inexorable march. And it is tragic. And that's why I posted it. Because in Pivotry, in motion, my idea is that we find other ways. We find other ways to thrive. We find other ways to invest in self-care. We find other ways to feel less threatened. You know, I'm always talking about door number 3, plan C. When I was talking to this individual yesterday, and I said, you know, when we're in a very bad state, when we're scared, when we revert to our pure emotional self, we always believe we only have one of 2 options, fight or flight, freeze or hide. And I said to this individual, a very wise friend of mine now, I'm so proud to be able to say friend, colleague, connection, has said and continues to say, we do not have to abandon people we have loved. We do not have to say, be gone from my sight. However, we do have to defend ourselves and our boundaries and our peace of mind. And to do that, we need to take the third path. And the third path is to draw not a line in the sand, but a heart-shaped line in the sand, and say to the loved one who is no longer good for us, I choose to love you from afar. I don't abandon you. I don't deny you. I don't forget for a moment all that has been and could be. I simply say, I must love you from afar to save me. And sometimes we need to hear that from an outside source to realize that the dilemma that this person is dealing with is the toxicity of the offspring who is choosing not to be active in the relationship, who is choosing to be a floating spectator. I suggested to this individual, spectator's got to buy a ticket. You can love from afar and live your life. And this individual said, that is a great deal to think of. Thank you. Thank you. And then I left that conversation and I sat down and I was doing my work and I saw the news flash and I watched the video and I listened to the governor of New York. And I said, and there, boys and girls, is another example. There is another example. What possessed them to think they did not have to pay a price? It cost them everything. That was their ticket. How tragic for everyone. For the people involved, for the people who were terrified, for the people who were showing up for work, who are there again today, for the people of law enforcement, for the transportation and safety people, for all the travelers just trying to get home. All the commerce, those are the busiest bridges. I mean, there are many busy crossings between Canada and the United States. That's one of the busiest. What did that serve? Well, hopefully the answer is a learning curve moment. That was a leap and a half. I am blown away. So, yes, it does. Violence destroys both the victims and the perpetrators. It does. So, oh, now look at this. Look at this. Dwayne Saunders, you have just done something utterly magical. And I thank you. Dwayne Saunders has just popped on and he said, "You Can't Do That on Television" is my all-time favorite TV show. Dwayne Saunders has flicked his light on and shifted the entire mood of this video. Thank you, Dwayne Saunders. You're amazing. You're a rock star. So today, speaking of shifting gears, holy crap. Speaking of shifting gears, right at the beginning when it said alert, reboot, abort, and I did, and I came on a couple of minutes late. I think what we all deserve to do to give to each other that is so important is permission to test those skills. You know how they say, once you've fallen off a bicycle, you never forget? Yeah, okay. But I'll tell you, if you think you can just get back on without practice, I'm going to let you know your dismount is going to need work. Just saying. Don't ask me how I know. Because my flash across the inward eye that is the bliss of solitude, dismount needs work, came right after I fell off a bicycle and skinned both knees simultaneously because do I know how to land or what? So this is the thing. We all know how to shift gears. My question today is, how do you? What techniques do you use? How quickly are you able to take your head out of this place and put it there when you are called on to do it? How easily do you let go? How safely do you let go of what you were hanging on to? I mean, it's one thing to leap off a bike or fall off a bike. It's another to just walk away while it's still going, because crash, bang, ripple, ripple, ripple. How versatile are we? How practiced are we? You know when we flicker in and out? Yeah? Well, when we shine the light on something and then we shut it off, all the people who were trying to find their contact lens by that light are now in the dark, groping and afraid to move in case they step on their contact lens. Also speaking from experience. So as fast as we flick on and off, are we also watching the effects of that? Are we able to see the impact of what we're doing? Are we taking the time and the care? Or have we come to think that, hey, I got this. I don't have to practice. I don't have to worry. I got this. Because as often as we do that, the universe says, oh, looks like somebody needs a wake-up call. And we get one. And then we walk around clutching and saying, holy crap, what's that? The way I did at the beginning of today's video. Ask for a lesson. Universe says, yeah, here you go. Thanks. So much to unpack today. So much. And by the way, all of you lovely people south of our Canadian border, it is your family day. It is your Thanksgiving. It is your day of saying, oh, well, okay, maybe one more helping. I'll deal with the diet tomorrow. Every single one of these is a decision. Every single one of these impacts all the people we love who love us back. It's not that I suggest that we spend the rest of our lives second guessing everything. For heaven's sake, we would never be able to live, would we? Here's what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting we pay attention. Just a little more. When we look at something, let's see if we can try to make sure we actually see the thing we're looking at. Let's make sure we take a moment and actually inhale and exhale. Give ourselves the time to do that. Okay? Let's give ourselves permission to be here in this moment instead of over thereing or floating on through. Let's give ourselves permission to really savor the flavor. You can't rush that. You have to give it its own sweet time. So on that note, and I want to hear from you if you have any comments about that, once you've had time to watch this video. I know a lot of you are busy and you're going to watch it later or tomorrow or whenever, because today is the day when we're cooking all the stuff and we're eating all the stuff, and it's fabulous. Today more than any day, although I say it every time, please be good to you. Please, please remember that there are people who love you. There are people who need you. There are people whose lives have been altered forever because you. That's it. Just you. Remember that. You matter. You have value. You make everything worthwhile. You do. So be good to you. Remember to hug your loved ones. All right? Have a great weekend. Don't spend all your hard-earned stuff on special sales that, you know what, they're going to be on sale again. Christmas is coming. All right? I can't begin to thank you enough for being part of this. It is the most amazing journey I have ever been on. And I can't wait for you to see the products and the opportunities and the training and the conversations that we're going to be having together and working through together very, very soon. All right? And I'll catch you next week. Same place, same time. Bye-bye for now.